I know if you've had any experience in today's horror game scene, the sentence fear of the unknown immediately makes you think this was some low-effort slop that the dev uses as an excuse to put in as little effort as possible. Duskers is not like that. This game gives you a frankly overstimulating amount of information, and the horror comes from when that information is unclear or outright stops working. Also, none of that stupid PS1 graphics stuff. This game uses Commodore 64 graphics. Hello gamers, Isaac here. Do you remember Lethal Company? Do you remember staying on the ship terminal because you were too scared to go inside, but you never admitted that? It's a powerful utility that lets you control doors and warn teammates of danger. Duskers is like that if it was a game. You control a group of drones exploring derelict ships to salvage resources while using doors, defense systems, and gadgets like lures to defend them from the various horrors that live there. This video is going to be on the shorter side for a couple reasons, but also I just want to start maybe putting some soft limits on my scripts to cut down on the pointless yapping. After starting a new game, or pressing P, and I should probably get this out of the way, but the mouse is pretty much useless for most of the game, you get a status report telling you, in layman's terms, things are not going well. Some horrible catastrophe happened that turned space into a graveyard full of derelict ships. It's kind of left vague whether it's just this region of space, or you really are the only humans still alive. This game is like Alien, where despite humanity reaching all throughout the galaxy, they still use chunky CRT terminals, with your upgrades menu, for example, looking like how Windows users think you check your email on Linux. And yes, the monitor being CRT does have actual gameplay mechanics. Right now, we're kinda broke, so let's board the ship we're at. Before boarding, you see a window showing all active drones and their equipped upgrades. These give a drone different commands it can do. It's good to have set roles like what the game has now with an explorer, general purpose toolbox, and generator. After boarding, you get the schematic view where you'll be spending most of your time. It gives you a top-down view of all discovered rooms, doors, and drones. In the corner, you'll find the console, which you use to control drones and doors through commands, so type A1 to open the docked airlock and begin the mission. If you press space, you can switch to drone view, which allows you to manually control a drone with WASD, but it's only useful for specific scenarios because you still have to use the console for commands, and the game intentionally glitches your view or completely cuts off the video feed. Also, for some reason, OBS completely murders the frame rate while in drone view, so sorry. Enemies can't spawn in the starting room or any room connected to it by an open door, so you're free to explore and gather any scrap laying around. By the way, you can add the all argument to make it a lot more convenient. The ship is completely unpowered, so you can't use any doors, but fortunately there's a power inlet in room 2, which you can navigate drone 3 over to and activate it. You have now utilized drone 3 to its fullest extent, although on larger derelicts, inlets only power a certain area, so you may need to move it around. Now that we have power, we can actually start exploring, although not actually, because these derelicts are filled with horrors. Most likely man-made, but pretty easy to comprehend, although very dangerous. Your main source of intel is a motion detector that scans adjacent rooms, so move drone 1 to a good room and activate it. It's best to search every room you can, so let's lure whatever it is to a different room. All normal enemies are fortunately lured to the sound of doors opening. This is the main gameplay loop of Duskers. Enemies are extremely dangerous, so your main way of dealing with them is luring them into stuff like traps, or the classic of a room with an airlock and venting them into space. Some rooms can give unclear readings, which you can determine by opening a door to a room with a functioning sensor and waiting a bit, or just flipping a coin. Going back, the room we just cleared has a disabled drone in it. Drone 2 has a tow cable, so let's navigate it to room 5, hook it up, and navigate back to the ship. Try to clear as much of the derelict as possible and navigate all back to the ship and exit. There's some other stuff you can find in derelicts, like terminals you can interface with, which, given the procedural nature of this game, can range from completely useless to MVP of the entire mission. Stepping away, I really like this system. Something about typing out a command and seeing things come to life just itches a specific part of my brain, but at the same time, it also fills you with stress and anxiety in a way no other horror game has. Sure, you can run away from a big monster, but when something goes wrong and you have to quickly type out commands perfectly, or a single fat finger or moment of hesitation can ruin everything? Man. After clearing the derelict and exiting by navigating to the boarding ship and typing exit, we can finally do things in the menus. We can see the rescue drone in the modifications menu where we can repair it, but we're kinda low on scrap and don't really need a 4th drone, so farewell, Jeremy. Moving down, you can modify your drone upgrades. Every time you use an upgrade, its failure probability increases slightly, which can be reset by repairing it. Some upgrades also have limited uses, which you can resupply with ethically sourced scrap. Some upgrades can also be given upgrades? like magnetic clamps for stuff like lures, which can go crazy in a room with an airlock. Next to modifications is ship config. Sometimes you can find towable modules on derelicts, which can be installed on your ship to give you new commands like remote generator, although be careful because they deteriorate rather quickly. Objectives are in the bottom left. This game doesn't have an ending or main storyline, so instead, objectives are you piecing together logs you find on derelicts to investigate various doomsday scenarios to find out what caused this. Going back to the main map, you can fly to derelicts with fuel cost based on proximity, and on the right you can see the selected ship stats like class, size, infestation types, which is not how many enemies are there, but how many types of enemies there are, and finally age. These derelicts have been abandoned for months and can be prone to breakage. Doors can jam, airlocks can fail, radiation can leak, and in the worst case scenario, a rogue asteroid can smash into a room. These events are completely random, with an increasing chance for each level of age. The graphics are what primarily set Duskers apart from the other games. Obviously. The faux late 70s vector graphics and the compressed shoddy drone cam, besides just looking cool, give you just enough to play and nothing more. This is why the horror in this game is so good. It doesn't need gore or a scary looking monster, because it uses the most simple, fundamental form of fear. The fear of the unknown. The fear that behind every door, in every vent, there could be something waiting to ruin your entire run. And goddamn does it work. It's kind of impossible to get it across through video, but this game just winds your nerves up and keeps you constantly on edge, making you double check things and waste limited time and resources. The sound design is also pretty interesting, with the game sounding like this. That's right, this game has zero background noise, so I hope you've been enjoying the Doomsday Heist soundtrack. Now, I could be pulling a white people and looking way too deep into this, but I think it really reinforces the feeling of how you're completely alone, and again, depending on your interpretation of the lore, you might be the last human alive. It also pairs well with the harsh sound effects, giving you a little jump scare every time a door jams or something. And sure, you get used to them, but then there's the bad or unknown ones. You got the bleeps, the sweeps, and Another thing I really like about Duskers is how, even if you remove all the horror, it's still just a fun game. That feeling when you type out some commands and see everything come to life, or when a plan turns out perfectly. This is the part of the game where the horrors start to fade, and also where some problems start to show up. Like, did you know that you can commandeer derelicts after you've cleared every room? Because I sure didn't, not until I randomly saw it in the help menu. It's actually pretty important because the best ship grades are permanently bolted to ships, and those communication blackouts I mentioned earlier are actually linked to an invisible ship health that degrades every day. There's some other useful commands like flag, swap, docking your ship to a different airlock, and destruct, which as a last resort blows up a drone and kills everything in the room. And the drone is fully dead, you can't tow it back to the ship. There's also some upgrades you can get later on that I want to highlight. Shield and turret completely changed the game by allowing you to actually fight enemies. From this point on, you have to start differentiating enemy types because they can range from piss baby to will turn you into interpretive art. This is also where my second criticism rises, because the only real way to learn what every enemy type does is by reading the wiki. As much as I love wiki slop, it does kind of ruin the immersion. Like, with all the abandoned logs you find, maybe some of them could talk about an enemy. You could still keep it vague, like maybe an engineer's report mentioning doors malfunctioning and hearing clanging in the vents. Speaking of, there's one last upgrade I want to talk about, and that's Sonic. When activated, it makes most enemies de-aggro and run away, which is useful in emergencies, but its real use is put on your generator drone because of one specific enemy. The slime is more of a passive threat, which, besides making me think Zeekers took inspiration from this game, spreads incredibly slowly and does low damage, but can go through vents and also kinda just teleports sometimes, which along with it not setting off motion detectors makes it incredibly dangerous for stationary drones. So that was my piece on Duskers. I probably looked way too deep into it, but there's something about this game that gets to me in a way that no other horror game has, while also just being really fun. It combines two horror tropes that I really like, slowly creeping through tight corridors and derelict ships, and controlling everything on the screen to fend off threats while it slowly breaks down. I guess I haven't done the YouTuber thing and turned this into a big thing about modern horror games, but I haven't really played any modern horror games. I mean, Bite by Night is pretty fun. I don't know if that really counts, but Yeah. This game was made by Misfits Attic, which is really just a couple people making things they like.
You know, actual indie.
You can find a long blog post on the website about the process of getting enough money to make this game. I haven't checked out any of the other games, but they do look interesting, and there's a supposed Duskers successor coming out soon. Hello gamers. Quickly recording at 2 a.m. Isaac here. You want a great example of Big Boy IO 1 timing? Just a couple days after I finished this script, Duskers 2 got announced. Now, after the disaster that was my Helldivers Illuminate video, which to this day I contemplate unlisting, I made a pact with myself to never cover big, active topics, with the exception of my next video, but you'll see. So I guess this also breaks it. From what it looks like, 2 will keep a lot of the core gameplay and just add a lot more stuff on top of it, so hopefully this video won't be completely irrelevant. Also, I have no idea where I was going with that whole depending on your interpretation of the lore, because looking back, it's pretty obvious that all of humanity was on the brink of extinction. I know it probably seems like I'm just hopping on a trend, and I'm sure some people saw the title and were like, get a load of this, LARPer. But honest, I had no idea about any of this. Like I said in the beginning, this video is meant to be on the shorter side for a couple reasons, so there's a bunch of stuff I left out, like outposts, these fun guys, and this whole pseudo storyline. Okay, I still don't know how to do outros, and I really want to work on it in the next video, so bye!